You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. Creating a thriving work culture is no small feat, but it's critical for long-term success of any business if they want to be successful at all. This is the key. So in the Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Ignite Culture, Margaret Graziano, also known as Magi to her friends, is the executive. She's an executive coach. She's a speaker, founder, and CEO of Keen Alignment, and an author. She's also walks leadership through transforming culture, which is so vitally important today. So Margaret joins us today to share insights and discuss how leaders can build a team that drives success. I know this is probably going to be a very popular show that we're doing today. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule, Magi, as your friends call you, but I appreciate it very much. So let's kind of jump right in. First and foremost, what inspired you to write this great book?
Yeah, so my first career, Act One, was in recruiting. And in that career of over 20 years, I really learned firsthand why people leave companies, why people take jobs with new companies, and why people stay. And when I shifted careers in my mid-40s, I had so many experiences, specifically with medium to small size businesses and manufacturing companies, where I was brought in because of employee retention. There was problems with employee retention. What they didn't see is the systemic challenges. Retention was just a measure of what wasn't working deeper inside.
Sure.
And we had so many really great success stories, but we also had failures. And I wanted to give people in one book, here's what the problem is, and the solution is a human solution. It's not about pins or awards or beer pong or parties. Like, we got to get back to basics if we want to get our return on investment. I'm a business owner. I've worked with business owners my whole life. If we want to get a ROI for the 100 or 200 or 500 people we have, we got to take care of the root of the human system. And I wanted to give people access to that en masse. It's also why I speak. Because the average company will not bring a consultant in. They'll try and do it themselves. And this book gives the do it yourself, DIY, people an opportunity to say, can we do it, or can we try certain things? So that's why I wrote the book.
Sure. Well, that's fantastic. We're glad that you wrote the book. It's an outstanding book. For those people, I highly recommend that you get the book, read the book, use the book. We've made it very easy. There's going to be a link right underneath the video that you're watching. So just click it and you can purchase the book. If you don't do that, don't complain to me about the culture problems that you have in your company, because we're bringing the solutions right here. But so, obviously companies are challenged right now, as they have been in building cultures. And then of course, COVID hits. And guess what? Everybody now either works from home or wants to work from home, which has really changed a lot of things out there, right? And especially for companies that are trying to build a good culture within their company. How do you do something like that when so many of your employees aren't even in front of you each day?
Yeah, so a couple things that I want to say before I get to how do you do that is, during COVID, what happened that didn't work, after the thrill of not having to work and being at home and baking and cooking and taking classes and all that fun, people started to experience something called isolation.
Yeah.
And when you're alone and isolated, unless you're a super type A and you can just make stuff happen alone, you start to spin. Your thoughts take over even your productivity. I just did a talk yesterday and people were shocked that the average human being has between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day, and 85% of them are negative and repetitive. That's what happens when people are home alone. Something happens at work, they take that and they spin out, and then I am their friend, and I am their friend, and then they're all I aming and creating this gossip swirl. And there are some people who are very productive at home. What I think needs to happen with the companies that have declared and are staying remote is they have to put money in the budget for offsites.
Yeah.
You have to bring, or on sites, you have to
Yeah.
bring the community together. You have to do things that have people feel like they are part of a community. And the number one thing with that is to have a cause that people can rally around.
Right.
Like I was working with a company that manufactured, privately owned, manufactured pipe for plumbing. And they used to say, Magi, we make shit pipe. And after I worked with them, they created clean, safe communities where people can thrive.
Yeah.
That alone didn't shift people's mindset.
Yeah, of
but
course. Wow.
their access to, I'm not making shit, I'm
Right.
making clean communities.
Of course.
And it took 3 years, and that was a heavy manufacturing company where it was us versus them.
Right.
They had a really great whole brain leader. He retired. They brought in a left hemisphere aggressive defensive leader, which we know all about these days. And he thought he could force people into productivity. Well, it backfired, and they were 2 weeks away from a union walkout, because if you don't cultivate those relationships with the people shoveling the coal,
That's right.
and making your product,
Yeah.
they'll get you.
That's right.
So we need not only to bring people together, but we have to have a noble cause. And then we have to ask ourselves, what kind of environment do I need to cultivate for people to thrive? Now, you and I both know, and everybody watching this, we are already far into AI, and it's going to accelerate now with our new administration for sure.
That's right.
It's going to accelerate, especially with, you know, who at
Elon
the
Musk.
helm of
Elon
the
Musk.
helm. So we have to look at what kind of environment do we want to cultivate,
Yeah.
so that people can leverage their strengths and augment with AI, because we know that AI is 50 years away from replacing the total intelligence of creativity,
Right.
and creating something from nothing. But people need to understand how to be in the space of innovation, how to work with technology more than they've ever worked with technology before, how to trust that if they lean in, they're not going to lose their job. They're going to elevate to be a higher level of something that's going to work with technology. And the third piece is we need to build the architecture for people to feel like they are really optimized, they're leveraging their genius, they're in partnership with the people that they work. So we need structure, and you actually need more structure. And I'm not talking about policies, procedures, ways to keep people down. I'm talking about ways to create autonomy and agency and connection for people that are sitting in their home office, or when they come in for these work days, these innovation work days or innovation hubs. So I answered a lot more than you asked, but
No,
it's a four-part question.
It's all good stuff and very timely, and so many people, small business owners and leaders of all size businesses are challenged in this area for sure. There's no question about it. Let me ask you this: what are some of the key signs that an organization's culture might need a reboot or a shift?
Yeah. So infighting on the executive team. And I was just talking to a gentleman that I serve the company. We coach all the executives. He's Russian. He comes from Russia. He's only been here maybe 20 years.
Okay.
And he says in his Russian accent, which I can't really imitate very well, executives are supposed to fight. And I said, let's just call him Henry or Henrik. No, you can disagree, but you can't be attacking each other, because
Right.
if you're attacking each other, you walk out of that executive meeting and everyone starts attacking the people that report to them.
That's right.
And then they start attacking each other.
That's right.
So dysfunction on the executive team, infighting and siloing between departments, not being able to get your product to your customer's door without lots of loopholes and drama and complaints. Customer experience is down, quality down, safety down. All of those are signs. Retention down,
Right.
or you're keeping people you don't want to keep because they're getting on the job retirement.
Yeah.
So productivity down. sickness, well-being, up, stress, up, people taking leaves, medical leaves. So there's all these points. And what I would say is, if you want to make it really easy, look at your spend on your human system, which is your people. And if you're not getting a 3 to 4x on that, you're not optimizing the talent you're hiring.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Especially in these highly skilled roles. And in the small business community, especially manufacturing, we're not at the point where we don't have people doing the lower level jobs. That costs a lot of money. And if they're not productive, and if they're complaining, and if they're angry, they can take out, like these guys with the union walkout could have taken out that company. They would have produced no pipe for 60 days. No pipe means, chain reaction with builders not being able to build what they want. And
that's right.
In that industry, there's two main providers in the United States. Two. One goes out, it's detrimental for the rest of that company's existence. So we have to start, all of us, you're looking at a type A who was not a great leader when I was in my 30s at all. I was command, control, my way or the highway. Didn't work out too well for me. I had to go to rehab therapy about how to be a leader. And I got out of the business I was in because it was a juggernaut industry where if you weren't driving,
right,
you couldn't succeed. And that wasn't good for me to be the kind of person I wanted to be. But the point is, we all have to understand that the human system is the biggest spend we have, more than equipment. We never stop spending on it. It's not just payroll cost, it's insurance, it's legal, it's lawsuits, it's all the extra money. If the average person is working in a state of frustration, that means they can only be effective 25% of the time. Which means you are pouring that money down the drain.
That's right.
75% of the time.
That's right.
If the average person or team is operating in fear, they're operating only in effectiveness 10% of the time. So now most CEOs, I do a lot of work with small business in the Vistage community. I'm sure you know about Vistage in in this channel. So it's small business for CEOs. Number one problem, you said, how did I get into this business? Why did I write the book? In speaking to over 60 Vistage groups, which are all CEOs of small to mid-sized business, number one problem is people. And they don't know what to do. So they keep spending on stuff. EOS and this and that, and it doesn't work.
And oftentimes it's themselves as a leader of the company or the CEO or it's really them, right? I mean, they've got to look to from within rather than for all of these fixes in so many cases, right? The culture doesn't start from the bottom up, although it will start from the bottom up if there's no effort from the top down, right? Because then all of a sudden the employees start to build their own culture positively or negatively to go, okay, this individual doesn't know what they're doing, so let's try to put together what we see as a culture for the company, right?
Yes, so there's an unintended consequence of not taking culture on diligently with intent. And the unintended consequence is you have aggressive defensive versus passive defensive. So you got the people who want to kick ass and take names, and you got the people who say, oh my God, I'm scared to death. And these are the ones doing a lot of the work. These are the ones making deals. And so when you have that divisiveness, you literally are, like I said before, but I'm going to say it again, losing any return on investment you could have had by having all these people. So in the first third of the book, it's all about the leader. For better or worse, you can have a passive defensive leader who everybody loves. They're so nice, they're sweet, they're saying all the right things, which in my article that's hitting LinkedIn today on Kamala versus Trump, she came across very compassionate, very inclusive, but no chutzpah to get the job done for the big things that need to get done. He came across, of course, very defensive. I'm going to kick gas, take names, and people want action. So they pick that, even though a lot of them don't like him as a human.
A lot of people that voted for him have said, okay, well, I don't agree with his methods, but I agree with the overall idea that he's going to take charge and get in there and do what he's got to do.
So people, all leaders, and not just CEOs, because in the work, remember, that I did in recruiting, and even as soon as yesterday at the speaking engagement, there's always those employees that are just unwilling to surrender to that they need a job and they got to get work done to get that paycheck.
Yeah.
So bad behaving employees actually create bad bosses.
Yeah.
And bad bosses create bad behaving employees. It's a two-way street.
That's right.
So if you want to work for a healthy culture and you're not the business owner and you're not the CEO, you got to look within.
That's right. That's right.
Most employees will tell me when their boss is not in the room. They gossip, they complain, they collude, they make their bosses wrong, and they don't work and are not productive.
That's right.
Over 50% of the time. So we all have to get awake and aware to, what am I doing as a leader that is causing agony for other people? Where am I being too passive, too nice, no accountability, or where am I being too aggressive and too cutthroat? And what about if I can integrate both?
Yeah.
My willingness to connect to people and my need to make an impact and produce results. And we swing, we're polarized in our society and in our own behavior, because if it works for us, we'll keep doing it until it doesn't. So
That's
self-examination, You're right, super important.
No question about it. The book is Ignite Culture by Margaret Graziano. Her friends call her Magi, so you are now one of her friends. But check it out. We've got the link right below this, as I mentioned earlier, so now you're just a click away. This is a book you want to get your hands on for sure if you're in a leadership role, if you're the owner of a company, if you're a board member, whatever. To build a good culture, sometimes you got to learn about culture, and this is a great way to do just that. So Margaret Graziano, I should say, executive coach, speaker, Wall Street Journal best-selling author, founder and CEO of Keen Alignment, and host of the Work Liberated podcast. Check that out as well. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Very much appreciate it. I'd love to have you back because I've got about 6 questions that time would not allow me to get to. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.